Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't that such an insightful session? Following on from what we've already had this morning, I really feel like we've been building on the themes of diving in deep into personal experiences, business experiences, and how we can practically apply AI innovation into daily life. Such fascinating insights being shared here now. Now, you may notice that behind me, the stagehands are diligently orchestrating the stage for a very exciting session. We might be breaking the record here at Expand North Star for the number of illustrious speakers that we can arrange to be on stage all at the same time. This particular session is entitled The Power of Unicorns Experience, 10x, the return on your time invested. A no-holds-barred session with founders across the industry, borders and cultures. This session is designed to spark debate and create some thought-provoking interactions, and perhaps we can invite you to be interactive and dynamic, and put your hands up if you have questions for the illustrious guest list that we'll have congregated behind us. What we're going to be looking into is the international experience that we can draw together here. Some of the guests you've already seen here on stage this morning. They'll be returning as part of this special panel discussion. So, without further ado, I think it's time for us to just make sure that you all know that we've got one full day to follow today. Here at Expand North Star, we've got a full day of programming tomorrow. We are in association with GITEX Global, of course. They've got 2 more days over at Dubai World Trade Center. So do please ensure that you have a look at the agenda, which is displayed at the front of this entrance hall, but also partake in some of the sister events which are happening over at GITEX Global as well. There's a real cross-section of guests and themes, and I feel like we are really building on the expertise which is being shared both on stage and off stage here. So the power of unicorns experience. Let me just double check that we've got all of the chairs in front of us here now. Amar, do we feel like we've got all of the chairs for all of our guests? Fantastic. I think it all looks very exciting. So this session promises to be super interactive. I think it's going to be super challenging. I'm very pleased that I'm going to be able to hand over into the expert hands of Nick Watson, CEO of UDrive, based here in the UAE. He'll be moderating this special session for us. And to talk you through the various guests that we've got who will be assembling behind us. Sebastien Borget, who is a co-founder and COO of the Sandbox from France. He was here with us yesterday. Dr. Mikayel, Vardanyan, who is the co-founder and CPO of Picsart. You just saw him there in that special session with David Rowan. Dan Westgarth, co-founder and COO of Deal from the States. Rohit Chamandanan, who is founder of Darwin Box. And Melvin Lubega, founder and director of Go One Australia. He was here very early on today for our opening session. And Ramankant Sharma, who's founder of LiveSpace. And they'll be part of this special session on the power of unicorns experience here on day 3 of Expand North Star, our dedicated landmark startup event. Ladies and gentlemen, please do give them all a big round of applause. And as I said, I'm very pleased that I'm going to be handing over to Nick Watson, CEO of UDrive, based here in the UAE, to be expertly moderating this panel. Nick, over to you, and gentlemen, please do join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, give everyone a round of applause. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you for all joining us this morning for or this afternoon actually, for our session. We have over, I think it's $15 billion worth of cash sitting, no, not really cash, but let's say assets under management sitting on the stage here. Some very, very interesting startups who became scale-ups, who are now going to become enterprises at some point, I believe, although we're all calling ourselves still startups. So this panel is really about understanding what it's like to go through the journey of being a unicorn. So coming into the unicorn phase, post-unicorn phase, and the experiences you get with that. I think what's really, really important is we're trying to get the panelists to be as honest as possible about this story and journey that that they've been through themselves. So I think for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the stage. I'm going to ask each of them to give a quick introduction of themselves and then their light side of becoming a unicorn. So first step, each one of these gentlemen, unfortunately it's all males, but maybe next year we'll have 50-50, some D&I coming on here. The first step is what it was like for you to go from being a startup into a scale-up, and what was the key learning you got from that from a positive perspective. It could have been a difficult situation you had to deal with, but it created a beautiful catalyst or positive output. We'll go from left to right to start with. Ramakant will go first, and then we'll continue on.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ramakant. I'm one of the co-founder at livespace.com, which is India's largest home renovation and interior platform. We largely sell to B2C customers and present in Middle East as well as in Southeast Asia, Malaysia and Singapore. And our platform offers mostly a solution-centric approach to the consumers, which means they can be looking for a full home renovation, partial renovation, or some degree of construction-related materials buying from us. And that goes a bit portion of our business from B2B to C. We are probably the largest community of interiors and architects online. Thank you.
So tell us your light side, your experiences from going to unicorn to light.
Absolutely. So I think building an unicorn, I honestly, personally, my experience has been I really wanted to build a company for getting me better or getting something. I think the startups take you through a journey of 10, 15 years, which makes you a better person every month and every quarter, and keep really a sort of a meditating and thinking where you need to solve problems which are new every quarter and solve them in a very, very value creative way, or come up with the answers which were not thought before. So I think that's the beauty of the journey rather than the success's outcome, honestly. And this has been largely a journey for me. And
okay.
Very enjoyable journey too.
Dan?
Hello everybody, my name's Dan Westgarth and I am COO at Deal. I grew up in the UK, now spend time between the US and the UK, and Deal is an international HR company. The fundamental purpose of Deal is to help companies hire, onboard, and manage their global workforce. And we do that through several primary mechanisms. We have a contractor invoicing platform, an employer of record platform, and a global payroll platform. I thought the question was quite intriguing. Light side, well, I think it's really a positive outcome. And for me, that positive outcome is helping millions of people around the world work for the best companies and get paid. And specifically, it's those people in emerging markets which haven't really had access to be able to make money. You know, the opportunities in some emerging markets is very lackluster. Those opportunities are limited to a very small number of people in specific sectors. Deal really levels the playing field and means anyone from anywhere can go get a job for a Fortune 500 company in America. And that to me is really amazing and a really positive outcome of becoming a unicorn.
Melvin Lubega, co-founder at an enterprise company called Go1 and a partner at a VC firm called Brigger. And so at Go1, just at a high level, we're like the Spotify for corporate learning, but ultimately we exist to help people unlock their positive potential through a love for learning so they can get paid by Dan and his team at some point. But really for us, unicorn is often an arbitrary number because you could be worth $900 million before, then $1 billion, but it's not that much difference. But what I found the big thing was for us was twofold. I think because we exist to help people grow themselves, by being a unicorn, and also one of the first unicorns across South Africa and in Australia, just being able to, people to know that we exist allows us to have a greater impact to our customers. So like right now, we probably say every 1.2 seconds, someone completes a course on our platform globally. And that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for, one, the capital, but two, the awareness of our platform. But I think the second positive element here is many of us start our businesses to have a particular impact. But in the tech ecosystem, particularly where I'm from in Africa, there's so few unicorns. And so being able to become a unicorn shows other founders that it can be done out of their context, out of their continent. And so for me, that's probably been the biggest benefit beyond our company, but more so in the ecosystem.
Thank you.
So my name is Rohit Chandamaneni. I'm a founder at Sandbox. We are an enterprise HR technology platform. It was nice to see two people before me talking about people. So we have a two-part purpose. One, to enable and empower the end users in an organization who are the people who are building these organizations, so every single one of them. And uniquely with an HRMS, with HCM, we have that opportunity to touch the lives of every single person in an organization, whether that's a CEO or an intern who's just joined. The second part purpose is for enterprises itself. We want to make enterprises more agile, more ready for change. That's why we call Sandbox. And I think the light side for us has been, one, obviously creating impact at scale. There have been very, very few global product companies coming out of Asia which are taking on various parts of the world. So I think that having impact on that front and encouraging more and more Asian companies to build product companies out of here has been one big part of the light side. The second is, I think, working with my co-founders, working with a set of people I was having fun with while doing this. I think most startups from outside look dysfunctional, but when you're having fun in this dysfunctional setup, driving impact for the external world is something has been light.
Thank you. Mikayel?
Hello? Yeah. So, yeah, I've already been here before this session, so not sure if I should talk about the company again, but basically we are the largest AI-powered creative platform, both for static and dynamic content, with over 150 million monthly active users, 1 billion image generated per month, and over 1 billion plus downloads since our launch. So on light side, it's a good question. There are many things we can discuss, but my colleague mentioned the fun. I would put the first thing that I personally, we all enjoyed during initiating and launching startup and when scaling up is the fun journey, despite many challenges, but there are many learnings. You met a lot of great people and you see a lot of happy customers and users. It's very like encouraging and you enjoy it, and I believe that's what drives you farther and farther, even that problems are getting bigger and bigger over the time. So I think that's the most important things. Plus, I believe I mentioned already learnings. You learned so many things during this process, which helps you even in your whole life, in your family. So I think that's another thing I would highlight as a light side.
Awesome, thank you. And Seb?
Hello, my name is Sebastien Borget. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Sandbox. Our mission at Sandbox is to empower anyone to become a creator. And how do we do that? By providing a platform where anyone can make 3D content, experiences, games, publish them on their land, truly own them, have the ability to exchange it with other users, sell it on marketplaces even outside of Sandbox, and monetize it the way they want. We've grown the company to roughly 400 people now around the world in 10 different countries, and we work with Deal, for example, to help us as well on that. We have over 400 major global brands that we onboarded on our platform as part of like the growth strategy. And we count about 5 million users, which might feel small, in Web 2, but in Web 3, it's quite an achievement so far. It's already kind of 5–10% of the market. On the bright side, I would say like Sandbox is kind of like a success that took 12 years in the making. So originally it was a mobile game in 2011. We were doing okay, maybe $4–5 million revenue a year. We had 40 million downloads, 70 million creation, but we were not like that top grossing game studio. And then in 2017, we pivoted to make a new version of Sandbox, this time with turning it into a 3D product with new creation tools, with blockchain and NFTs at the core. So it became a platform. And over 5 years, what we've been able to achieve thanks to that growth, that recognition is amazing. Like we're really able to make an impact in thousands of people's life who discovered new skills, new job opportunity. It turned out like we not only have product now, but a growing ecosystem of 230 companies in 40 countries around the world that are building on top of Sandbox and bringing brands, etc. So it's quite exciting, and like whenever I travel to a new country, there's already some recognition about what we do and a desire to work with us. However, on the dark side, it also comes with high expectation from partners, clients, and gamers in general. And the scale of time that people give us to achieve things, like you already probably saw in the news, Metaverse is great, Metaverse is dead in less than 12 months. Well, we know it will take us 10 years to build the overall vision and achieve everything we do. So you have to manage the expectations, the public side, the internal communication, all those challenges that come in the life of an entrepreneur, and still be able to be there and survive for 10 more years to keep building and delivering on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Seb. So we just heard the good part. We got a little teaser about the dark side of being a unicorn. I want everybody to sit in their chair and imagine a couple of things, right? Some of us are riding donkeys, some of us are riding stallions, some of us are riding dragons. I don't know what the new thing between dragon and unicorn is going to be. It's going to be some sort of hybrid. Maybe Picsart can help us with that one. You're riding unicorns, so you're on the street, you're dressed really well, you're sitting on this beautiful unicorn that's gathering down the street. It looks amazing when you look at it from the outside and you're looking in. Now let's talk about the actual realities of building a unicorn, right? There is the phase of going from startup, scale up, and at some point there is a definition for unicorn, normally led by a valuation, but it could be some other metric, volume of people, volume of customers, monthly active users, etc. You all have probably your own real definition of a unicorn, other than the actual market valuation, because that can go up and it can definitely go down. So let's look at the dark side of building a humanized company which has an impact, which all of you obviously have an impact on people. So I'm going to pick at you one by one, and what I'm looking for is the truth. The realities of what actually happens, so that everybody out there riding a donkey goes, okay, unicorn looks pretty from the outside, but there is actually hard work to do it, right? So, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with a donkey, huh? I mean, they're very, very efficient. They get where they need to get still. It might be slower, but it still makes it. So, Rohit, go first.
Okay, you said the dark side, so I'll start with the Darth Vader, which is competition, right? Like, so we compete with the likes of Oracle, SAP, Workday, all of who have balance sheets larger than GDPs of many countries. So for them to decide to take on us and then taking on us is extremely simple. I'll give you an example. So when we had 10 sales folks, when we were growing, all the 10 of them got an email from Oracle saying 50% increase in salary tomorrow if you join us. And it was brutal, right? It was just in your face, brutal. But except for one, everybody stayed back. Only one of them left. So then you start believing in the fact that people join you for more reasons than money, and that's how things grow. And of course, right, I think competing in an enterprise space on deals, deal by deal, where competitions of that size obviously have the credibility. I mean, they are great companies themselves of 30 years plus, and come in and say, hey, we've been around for 30 years, these guys have been around for 3 years, 4 years, in a deal after deal where we do a great job of the sales, great job of showing the product, we really have a better product is the dark side, right? I think dealing with those losses, dealing with rejection after a lot of good effort is definitely the dark side, keeping your chin up and then doing it, to moving to a stage where we win 60-70% of the deals when we are up against them, I think has been that journey and has not been an easy journey, and that's the dark side, right? And a lot of times you feel, what do we need to do to take on somebody this big? And I think that's been the tough part, but also the most fulfilling part of the journey.
Dan?
I think the dark side for me was the COVID times. We built Deal during the pandemic, and there were two outcomes. I think the first outcome was during the pandemic, everyone was in lockdown, so everyone worked really hard because there wasn't really much else to do other than go for your, at least in the UK, go for your permitted exercise time. Otherwise, it was kind of like, you're indoors, so let's build a great company. The second outcome was a lot of companies decided to go remote and distributed. And that meant that people were able to work from home, and it wasn't necessarily their home in the metropolitan area. Maybe it was their family home where they grew up. And we saw people migrating between different countries and maintaining the same job. And that was a huge catalyst in companies hiring cross-border. And we always had the view, a deal within the kind of exec group and leadership group, that companies would eventually hire cross-border and take advantage of global talent. And the pandemic made that come to fruition much, much quicker than it would otherwise.
What happened to you? Like, what happened to the team? Like, how did you guys handle it from a realistic point of view, stress point of view?
I think actually building Deal was a really great outlet for people. I think people were incredibly bored, at least in the UK and in New York. In New York, most people live in 600 square foot apartments. You know, if you're lucky, maybe you have 800 square feet. Or maybe you share a room with somebody. Like, that's the reality of living in a metropolitan city as a young person. So I think being able to work on something truly meaningful was a great outlet.
Okay, Ramakant?
Yeah, so I think in our case, we are trying to solve a renovation of a home. So imagine a problem where almost 27 to 30 different trades are involved to make a home renovation done, including plumbing, electrician, furniture, wallpaper, flooring. And putting all of these things together, you make a nice living room or a kitchen or a nice bathroom. And the industry on the back end is largely organized, catered by a couple of millions architects, freelance interior designers. In fact, the supply chain, the raw material they buy, is also largely unorganized. We started from India. India doesn't have large stores like Home Depot. IKEA was very recent. So I think we entered into a problem statement where a couple of our friends, investors, told us this is a very important problem to be solved on the lighter side. Like, you are making people's home beautiful, making the interior design and renovation easy. It's like our vision was to make home interior as easy as buying shoes or t-shirts on internet. And to solve that problem, I think the dark side of that problem was such a 27, 30 moving parts of supply chain, labor management, people management, and putting an ERP technology around that. And the payment cycles for this kind of a large ticket transactions are multi-steps. So India didn't have the payment structures for this. So we ended up building our own proprietary payment capturing technology for this. So I think while solving this, and one more emotional point out there, home renovation in that market is probably second or third highest ticket size purchase a normal consumer would do in life. Probably after buying home and marriage, this is the third or fourth largest payment on the wallet they spend in their lifetime. So that was the intensity of the problem. And while solving this, I think we need to literally solve this 27 to 30 trades one by one, and bringing this unorganized to organized on a single platform was very, I'd say, living with the chaos and uncertainty kind of situation till we found our product market fit in first 2-3 years, and we are operating only in one city of India for, I think, till our Series C. So that has been iterative again and again. We solved a solution doesn't scale, because getting a 1 home done is a very, or a 10 home done as a 100 home done is a very different problem than simultaneously doing 50,000 homes. And to scale that kind of a thing, I think we have gone through multiple hours logging teams and literally living with uncertainty. And why I'm emphasizing more on uncertainty is the data points you get, whether you are doing right and wrong, is also long tail, which means you implement a solution. By the time a renovation project completes, it's a 3-4 months, a quarter gone. So you've always been in a situation where we implement a solution, we see a data 3-4-6 months later, and reiterate again. So a long tail, large ticket, unorganized to organized problem, I think that has been the biggest challenge and a work on our side.
Thank you. Mikayel?
Okay, so first of all, when you are doing startup, it's complete darkness, right? You do not know what you are doing, why you are doing. You are trying to find the product market fit, and you're working day and night to prove that it's worthwhile and you do something valuable. Then when moving from startup to scale up, I believe I want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, you start to forgetting the names of the employees when you're starting to cross this 200 people mark, and everything start to go a bit of wild than it was previously when you are doing small and agile and very fast enough. So it's really important to remember that. Second, I believe it's when you are moving and transitioning to the scale up, you're thinking, okay, let's double, triple the size of the company. It will have to move fast. You will do 10 times more stuff than you have been done previously. It's completely vice versa. Everything what have been working fine before started not to work, and you understand that you are spending like 50% plus of the time on the overhead, which is not building the product for your users, but resolving some internal problems and trying to make your company efficient, etc. So I think that's the dark side, that you believe that you will double, triple the size and you will move fast and you will do much more, but that's not the case. And usually what happens, you revert back, and after a while you are starting to downscale and then fixing all the stuff. That's how you learn, and that's how you improve and fix it. Otherwise, just reading nice books, what is the best case practices, best practices, and replicating and saying it will do the work, in most of the cases doesn't work.
Melvin?
So the dark side of being a unicorn, I think the urban poet, Notorious B.I.G. put it well. More money, more problems. And I think when you think of the journey of unicorn, it's easy to talk about the problems of scale, which I think all of us encumber, because you get more money and you therefore need to grow quicker because you have to reach that particular size of market you want to achieve. But something which is often not spoken about, I think, is the personal element. I think as a founder. So, you know, there's a big article in TechCrunch, you've raised $1 billion at a crazy valuation. And what that means for the relationships you have with people around you. Because the reality is that all of us are passionate about what we're doing, we're building our products, we're doing it for a purpose. And just because an article went out doesn't necessarily mean that on that day $1 billion came into your back pocket. Or often when you announce the round closed 6 months before. It's a normal day for you in the office. And so what I found particularly tricky was when you're announcing more rounds, your company is more public, and all of a sudden the uncle will be like, so you've got $1 billion, could you possibly give me some money? But even more importantly, how your friends change towards it. I think it's something that you often don't talk about. And so I'm very big on building in silence, but often when you raise capital at the scales that many of us have, it therefore becomes more public, and navigating that's quite tricky.
Interesting. Seb, can you just highlight your dark side just to bring us back up?
All right. So I think that there's one thing to consider. Like, there's kind of like a love-hate kind of relationship related to that. In a sense, like people in our companies, they love the mission. Like, they feel really passionate about the mission. Like, personally, that drives them every morning to go to work. Like, we are making an impact. We're empowering people to make new things, be creative, bring more diversity, etc. in building this platform and the metaverse. And you have to build a company culture around that. A company culture is like anyone, no matter what topics they work in the company, like they can feel how they are contributing personally and as a team. That's part of like retaining them. Also, something I didn't expect is becoming the public face of the company and having to do all that job of public speaking, like today, etc., while being in the back burner to work on product and fix things like efficiencies and others. And sometimes, like as you grow, and specifically as you grow in 10 different countries, like it gets harder to synchronize people, to get them to share the same company culture, the same information, the product, the roadmap, and so on. So everything you do as presenting to investor, presenting on press, interviews, and keynotes, what you're working on, you don't really spend as much time to present it internally to make sure to align everyone in your company that they know exactly where we're going, what we're working on, etc. And so the people who initially join you, they're very passionate. They start to kind of like feel lost, feel like complaining a lot about like what's happening in the company, feeling the lack of guidance, and so on. And then they turn out into the biggest haters. And then haters are an issue because then they start to build a bad company culture. And it could spread fast if you don't react. My recommendation on the dark side is like you have to communicate as much and put as much effort as you do internally to like maybe 400 or 100 people or 1,000 people, depending on your company size, to millions of people out there you're trying to sell your product to. And you have to react and fix as quickly as possible, not only the issue you have with your client, with your community, take responsibility and be transparent on fixing things outside, but also inside. Like, don't let the bad people spread rumor that, oh, everyone is negative about what we are building, when it's just 1-2 people who are actually affecting the morale of the whole team. Solve it chirurgically, like work a fair solution to make them live in a fair way while they still feel like how they contributed to the journey. And then you will see benefits, and you get more efficient. And sometimes, like you said, like raising more money, you want to accelerate the revenue, the growth, you hire more, but it's more about like having the right people, being well empowered and given the responsibilities they can handle, and fixing the internal issue while dealing with all of those things at the same time.
Do you all feel like a unicorn? Do you emotionally feel like you're a magical thing?
Well, not really. Like somehow I don't like. I'm a very product guy. I don't like to perceive just the feeling of valuation. Like, what's valuation at the end of the day? The potential value at which you could be acquired if you do an exit in a long time, or if you go IPO. What matters is like number of users, active users, revenue, how much cash you bring, and to keep your company going on. So when we'll make $1 billion of revenue, then I will start feeling maybe unicorn size.
Dan, you were going to say something?
I think exactly the same. I feel no different. To me, it doesn't matter if I'm working on a small project or running a 1,000+ person company. I relate so much to what you said. People definitely treat you differently. Business peers, friends, etc. And there are good and bad parts to that. I think on like the social side, it can be quite bad. From a customer point of view, it's great. It's a very powerful tool to showcase their valuation and build trust. So yeah, I think it does change things, but fundamentally, I don't feel any difference than when it was a 10-person passion project.
Anybody else want to have a go at that?
So I think for us, for me specifically, I think a lot more people in my extended family got curious about what I did. Till then, nobody even cared, right? They're like, oh, he's up to something, right? Like he calls it a startup. It's called Darwin in India, right? Like up to something. But suddenly there's so much hoopla about unicorn, and you're in the newspaper and all of that, right? Like which from a tech crunch you get onto a mainstream newspaper once you become a unicorn. And suddenly a lot of family relatives were like, hey, what do you do, right? Like, why is this thing? So I think
You
that
found
changed.
some more cousins in the family there.
Yeah, I suddenly realized I have a lot of cousins. So yeah, I think that's what changed. Otherwise,
Any
business
ex-girlfriends
as
come
usual.
back?
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
no. I mean, no regrets.
Anybody else?
I think like a good measurement is not the valuation, it's the revenues of the business, how many customers you have and how many people you have. That's what you're really responsible for. And when revenues, customers, and the team is growing quickly, you need to reinvent yourself every 3 months or so. If I look at the last 4 or so years of being working on Deal, every 3 months I basically had to reinvent myself, and as have the different leaders of the companies. And your values and morals stay the same throughout that journey, but you need to rethink and reinvent how you're working, how you're motivating people, what the objectives are, and how you're running the business.
So,
Yeah, so I think one thing to add on this, primarily it has been more solving problems and value creation. Valuation will follow. But I think what the unicorn take on the thing helps sometimes is probably getting a better talent on board, better quality of vendor base, the kind of negotiations we could do on our entire value chain, starting from manufacturing to supply chain. I think that had a little bit momentum build and more tractions. Probably it was just more a PR and a news for us, but the company per se fundamentally is still solving the same problem in a value creation, but it's too much news around it. That probably led all of a sudden sudden change. In fact, we see the quality of discussions changed across our vendor partners, across the value chain.
Yeah, just think to mention, I believe if you are thinking long term and you are thinking of building a sustainable business, you never think about becoming unicorn, like it's not your main focus. Your main focus should be on building something valuable, and being it unicorn or something else, it's just a validation that you did something right and you built and created something valuable for the users and for the customers. But during, I believe, the COVID, there was some wrong misconception about these unicorns, and I was seeing many companies were built based on, okay, we need to become unicorn without even understanding what does it mean, or like, it's not about unicorn, it's about building and creating value and building the right product for the users, and then all the rest is a byproduct of this. So I think it's changed, and now it's getting back and normalized again to what it was previously, which I believe the right thing.
Thank you. Oh, Seb wants to have a go.
Maybe just one thing I'd like to add on the value creation. I really agree. And what's special about Sandbox is like the value is not only in the equity, but because we are a company evolving in Web3 and blockchain, value also holds in like the virtual lands that the user own and all the digital assets that are being created and they own, including the Sand token, which is a top 50 cryptocurrency globally listed and which market cap was worth several billion of dollars at peak. So how you ensure that you continuously deliver utility and value for the digital asset that ultimately will be 100% owned by users directly, not your shareholders, where you also build like core value as a company on the product, on the tech, on the team. Like you have basically 3 problems to solve at the same time, and still it's very exciting in a way to go into that decentralized direction and building a world that evolves with your users too.
So Nick, it's an interesting point around, as a unicorn founder, do you see yourself differently from others? Do you feel like a unicorn? And so in my venture capital fund, we invest in pre-seed and seed. And often what separates the entrepreneurs we back and those we don't is often the level of ambition. So I don't think I am a better entrepreneur than the guy at my local mall that sells flowers. I end up wanting to buy 1 bouquet, I buy 5, I buy chocolates, I buy balloons. He upsells me every single time. But I think often the difference between me and other entrepreneurs, let's say who are solving problems more localized, is the scale of the ambition. And I think that's often what separates, I think, a unicorn founder from another founder is more so, we all love our problems, we're all passionate, we're all people, we want to build good cultures. But I think the ambition and the impact we want to have, and that scale is what really differentiates. Because the reality is, if I was solving a very localized problem in South Africa, I would struggle to convince Microsoft, Salesforce, SoftBank to invest in me because the market's not big enough for me to capture the value I create. I think that's the big difference.
Okay. So it's gonna be an open question. You don't have to all answer, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So you wake up in the morning and you're building a company that's growing, and you can only build it to what you know and what you think the vision is. Give us a story about how something happened in this journey up to unicorn and post-unicorn where a single piece of information or a person whispered something in your ear, said something to you that made you go, ah. Now, I don't know what it could be because, again, you all have a different journey. It could be that you've got a new advisor who said, you're spending too much energy here, you need to spend it here. We've all learned to hire lots of teams and realize that 100% of what you hire, 50% is what you keep, right, when you go into scale. So the question is, was it something that you woke up in the morning and went, and you smiled to yourself? That made a huge difference if you think back.
I think one that comes to mind for me was, I think all of us as founders building our businesses know the detail, are comfortable in the detail, and can go very deep into the weeds. And so one of my board advisors said to me, Malvin, look at your diary a year ago and look at it today. And if you're doing the same things, you haven't grown, and you're probably centralizing too much power or influence in the business. And I think it's to the point Dan mentioned where I think we find ourselves every quarter, every 6 months trying to reinvent ourselves, but there's no yardstick of what that looks like. Because a company can grow despite you as a founder not growing yourself. And so just that accountability and that particular, call it heuristic, was very important for me in my growth.
So what did that do to you? When he said that to you and the light bulb went off, what happened?
I went to my calendar and I was doing the exact same things with the exact same people, and I asked myself, am I really growing? Because we all want our businesses to grow exponentially. But if I'm growing linearly, that means I'm retarding the business's growth. And so it almost then forced me to take a step back and say, am I empowering my teams to do the best they can do, or am I too much within the weeds of the business?
Okay, that's a good one. Anything else? I can see something percolating, Dan. Come on.
So I think not a whisper kind of thing, but a general advice, which I think on a hindsight came through one of our early investor. Basically, he used to call me, ping me on WhatsApp and this, and I was most of the time busy. So he mentioned one thing, that you being the busiest person in the company, something is not right. Which essentially means you need to really hire the leadership early and hire people who can take decisions, senior folks. And the lesser busy you are, I think the chances of being a successful company is higher relatively. And this changed my almost like a 15, 17 hours a day schedule to at least 4-5 hours a day on hiring when we are a early stage company. And 8-9 years hindsight, if I look at the decision, most of that leadership, almost 100% of it is still today with the company. So I think that without that advice, we could have delayed till Series C, D, or a couple of years. We did very early on in our case.
Seb?
All right, so first I'd like to thank my business partner and co-founder, TIME100. Like, we've been together for 16 years now, and I realized the importance of having such a relationship with a co-founder that sometimes longer than your own wife, that you spend more time with your own family, right? In always challenging us in okay, what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, are we going toward a wall, or what we should change? And sometimes, and every time he's right about everything. It's he feels, and at some point we define that what are we doing at Sandbox in 3 key categories. Are we working on product? Are we working on content? Are we working on ecosystem? And we felt like we were weak on product, so we decided to double down on hiring our tech to better deliver to the content so the ecosystem could keep building. And that was a great choice that we made, specifically at a time where the market slowed down, the marketing spend wasn't sufficient to engage, so let's focus on retaining the already engaged users. The other thing that I think was a great decision, that one also came from us, is focusing on the ecosystem, but not seeing the world as one single market, going a bit deeper, and we thought about it, and we said, look, we raised fund in 2018, and all our investors somehow were Asian. Like we have Japanese investors, Square Enix, Hashed in Korea, True Global Venture, but a good part of Asia, and Animoca Brands from Hong Kong. So maybe we should not try to be a US and Europe-centric company. We should focus all our development in Asia, because like if investors put their money, if brands come from here, etc., like growth is there, so let's go there. And I'm French, so it's not quite natural for me to go develop a market in those regions. But we spent 2 years, the effort, and now today we're seeing the result of that. 40% of our business, our creators, our players, our partners are from Asia. And it's something I wouldn't have been expecting in 16 years of business activity. And now we even see that extending toward MENA region as well. And I would have never guessed. So I think it's always interesting to challenge yourself in the perspective. Sometimes double down the effort where you feel like if something works, let's double down there rather than like work hard against more challenge and friction in older markets. And hopefully that will keep paying off for us.
Excellent. Okay.
No, so I think my biggest learning has been fire fast when things don't work, right? Like, and I always took it as a part of partially ego, where I said, oh, I couldn't have done a bad hire, or sometimes it is just discomfort of having a conversation on, right? Like, oh, there is time, maybe this person will improve, but I think it took me a while to get used to the idea of saying this is not working out, and I don't see this working out in the future, right? Being extremely brutally honest, objectively about a person, which is very difficult. I think that's been a big change in terms of, and big unlock, because you always end up probably hiring better people out there who are rightly suited and for whom our organization is rightly suited. I think that's been a big, big learning.
So you just opened up a big can of worms now, because I'm sure I'm going to dig in on this one. All right, so each of you, can you give us a story of you felt in your heart it wasn't going to work out. You didn't say no because you probably, it wasn't about the money. It was about giving more time, right? But in the end, you end up having to say no. We can't do this. So it could be firing someone. It could be a product that you started with, and maybe stubbornness, maybe a little bit of emotion crept in. You've got cash, you've got funding, so you don't need to kill it because of that. You should be killing it because it's not going to work. Now, you choose your poison. It'd be a person, a situation, an opportunity. Have you got a story here for sharing?
Yeah, maybe I will share. It's about COVID times again. Everyone was hyperinflated, right? A lot of multipliers for every company. And it was kind of trendy to keep hiring and growing to the extent is possible for every single company. And we have been doing it second time on that scale, and we learned already from the previous time that, as I mentioned, it's not that number of people matters, but how lean you are and how fast you can move. So we inherently knew, and I especially knew, that we will scale back over the time. But because it was trendy, all investors were saying you need to grow fast enough in order to keep up with the competition, etc. You just were doing that, but knowing that after some time you will do the vice versa and complete opposite of it. And that's what happened, I believe, after like this COVID buzz and when everything got normalized. So I think that was one of the learnings, that you knew that you will do that, but you should get kept up with the competition and with trends, with everything, and you should do like others are doing, and because of that you just did it. I think that was one of the things. And also wanted to add back to the previous topic. I was talking to many friends, different companies, and that's a usual source of learnings for me right now. What they did in their companies, what worked, what didn't work. So, usually when you are on the scale-up stage, you try to play more on the safe side. You try to think very logical that if you do this, it should work. But what I have learned, and this is my common saying, that it can be controversial, that doing wrong things right, that's what always helps you to grow after a certain stage. versus doing the right things and assuming, okay, this everyone, if they're doing the same, it will work, but it never works after a certain stage, and you need to come up with more creative ideas and do maybe non-logical things, which is for everyone seems controversial, but at the end of the day, it pays off more than doing everything right.
Dan, you're a co-founder and chief operating officer, so technically you're on the operation side as well, right? So you definitely have some stories to share.
Yeah, for me it's internal processes. You might build an internal process that works really well when you're at quite a small scale, and then as things get busier, the process starts to become too cluttered and break. And I think you need to always find the equilibrium between maximizing value from an internal process and not replacing it too early. And that's always a challenge, and we need to get that. If you get that timing just right, it makes scaling much easier.
Okay. Anyway, Seb?
Yeah, I can jump in. Like, two things keep in mind. Like, very often, like, people say gaming is a hit-driven business. Actually, it's pretty much true that, like, metrics don't lie. And we're evolving in this creative industry. Like, we feel like, oh, we're not making, like, enterprise product. We're making games. There is emotion, like a lot of art and content, etc. But if you look at some core metrics and you realize that you're not going to grow that game in terms of retention, etc. Like, don't overspend time trying to improve it. Like, throw away, start again over the concept and iterate faster. That's the first takeaway. The second takeaway is like, Sandbox is positioned between gaming and blockchain. Blockchain is this industry where there's not a lot of talent around, so there is high demand for profiles, engineering, developer, but also people evolving in marketing, etc., in those core areas. And to be honest, I've never had in my life, and it's been already 16 years of entrepreneurship, I've never seen like people asking for raises every 3 months and like salary being inflated over like what I've seen before by far. And so you have to learn to just say no. Like, we only evaluate every 12 months the new raise, and there will be a plan to evaluate that. And if you're not happy, but like, go work for the competitor or leave the company, because it's just unsustainable. Even if you have the money, even if the market is more bullish at some point, it's not driving the right culture. And people are always going to leverage this against you. And you fear losing people because you always feel like, okay, the time to train them, to make them operational, all the knowledge they acquired, I'm losing more than I might gain if I get new talents. But sometimes, yes, you should look at like getting new talents and people who are real, not just for that.
That's a good point. We've only got a minute left. Maybe they'll give us some more time. But give me the number of years you think the average lifespan of an employee should be. Right? So it's a really hard one. What you have to think about is them learning and getting into the business and then seeing where they can provide value, which takes some time, and then they show value and then they scale or they don't, right? At some point, everybody outlives their usefulness, either because they cannot scale or because their heart changes or their personal needs change. Do you have a number? And is it something that you sort of keep as a metric that you keep an eye on?
I would say like sweet spot is between 2 to 3 years to really turn someone from like a rising star into your champion that knows your company and can take like more of a leadership, head of VP or C-level position in the company.
Yeah, so somewhere around there, but I would still say a role rather than like I've moved functions, people have moved functions and done really well. So I would caveat it with, let's say, people who in a given role or in a ladder, 2 to 3 years or 3 years as would be my.
I think for us, I think 2 to 3 years on a sales function, probably 3-4 years on the product and tech.
Do you believe in horizontal movement?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you believe they have to be close to each other? So, for example, sales and marketing, marketing and sales, or sales to operations, operations to marketing?
No, I think it should be open, free reign. I think ultimately you can't limit someone's personal development and growth for the company. I would say in a company, 8 years, but I would agree with like 2 to 3 years within the same particular, let's say, role, because ultimately you want your staff to go out and build their own businesses as well.
Anybody else? Seb?
There's an interesting way of thinking, like, because I come from France and a very European background, like we graduate from schools, we have our diploma, we're supposed to be great into certain areas. Truth is, when we arrive, we have a lot of pride, but zero experience. So, and then I worked for 15 years with people based in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, in India, in Romania, and all those, they didn't go through the traditional curriculum. They just learned by themselves, online or internet. And I found they have much more experience, more skills, and overall they are like just better people to work with because they are more humble and a desire to achieve better things because of that. So I would say, like, don't trust necessarily only the experience on paper. Challenge them with real tests, and then second, like, people are usually great in certain areas, but that doesn't mean they will turn into great managers of other people. So don't make necessarily that mistake to always try to elevate people as manager and team leads because they are great in an area. Ask them first if they want that, and we'll see.
Let me quickly add, I believe it depends on the discipline, so it's really hard to tell number of years, because in some cases you see very promising, fast-growing junior with high potential, and you promote him or her, and it works completely opposite for him, so it kills him and his potential because the maturity level in terms of age and experience is not there. Also, this person grows really fast and learns a lot, etc. So I believe that's one thing to consider. And as my colleague mentioned, I think another failure which everyone makes usually, that like making really great individual contributor manager, so then you get no great individual contributor and no great manager, which pisses off everyone around. So, and you are getting more issues with that. So you need really think hard when to make it, why this person needs to do, and also talk to that person, because in some cases these people also understand they are better focused on one thing and work on it versus managing people and spending more time on like people management versus doing the work.
Do you all have as much fun now that things have got big and it's a bit more bureaucratic and more administrative? And which role were you in where you had the most fun? Okay, let's pretend the co-founder role is really fun at unicorn scale and it's brilliant, but just imagine that you get to choose another role that you had in the entire journey leading up to that. I'm at the top of the pile, right? Which role was it and what were you doing? Was it coding? Was it sales?
I enjoyed selling where there was nothing. So that was just,
selling people with nothing.
Yeah, selling when there was nothing on product, right?
Vaporware.
Like very little on product.
Sounds like Oracle.
I wouldn't
Are you
call it
ex-Oracle?
It's coming, it's coming. Right? Like it's selling the ticket for a train that's coming. But that was fun because, I mean, you visualize in your head. You're trying to make it visual in the customer's head. Yeah. And it was always fun doing that.
I enjoyed more on the sales side. So when I built our sales operation early on, you're working with young people and also helping shape their careers, whereas now a lot of the people that report into me are more senior, been there, done that before, and missing that growth in the person.
I think
for me, either customer support or data science.
Well, okay, all right.
I like helping.
Which one first?
Probably support. I like helping people.
Okay, excellent.
all new initiatives, 0 to 1 problems.
0 to 1, okay. I love the hunt. Being told you can't do it and then going, okay, love the challenge. I was told that once with an investor, we'll never get them, and we got them.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell because you as a co-founder usually experience everything, right? You do sales, you do support, you do development, if you have engineering background, so you do everything. So you enjoyed mostly all the disciplines. So, but I believe, yeah, maybe business development itself, because there is more interaction with people and understanding their problems and trying to provide something valuable, sell something valuable.
Do we have time? Okay, all right.
So just like, I have a product and engineering background, right? So I love to dive into understanding how we're building, how we present it, what's the FTUE, the user experience and so on. But I also enjoy like being creative on like how we're presenting it with the marketing team, and ultimately, because we have this ecosystem and we are a user-generated content platform, being directly in contact with all the creators, talking to them on a daily basis, getting their message and replying them on every single email from our users to understand what they want to do with our product, what are their challenges, and what we can improve. And maybe one takeaway is like, at the end of the day, like every teams are not enough triumvirs. So people think marketing, people think publishing, product, but you need people who connect between every single department and talk to the clients to make sure like we're building a solution for real users and we're more synchronized among like what we're going to launch.
Okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was great. I'm sorry we didn't have time for Q&A, but thank you for your energy and your honesty. And if anybody wants to talk to them, please grab them at the end of the panel. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.